the 5 keys of adding 6 figures of revenue, bookkeeping and advisory revenue to your business quickly. Okay, so we talk about lead generation, how to handle consultations, value pricing your services, offering advisory services, and leveraging people and processes to allow you to pull yourself out of the business and make more while working less. So today I am really excited to be doing another consultation role play. So this is a live bookkeeping consultation role play where I'll be playing the bookkeeper, and I'm going to bring Ben on as the prospect. Okay, Ben is a member of my mastermind program, and so he'll be playing the role of the prospect. Now, we are going live on both Facebook and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and be sure to join my private Facebook group, and you will get access to all kinds of content that will help you grow your business. And if you're in the Facebook group watching, be sure to click that link in the description if you want to interact on the comments so I can see names and profiles, see who I'm talking to. And be sure to head over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel there, because I'm releasing new videos, again, giving you everything you need to help grow your business. So while we're doing this role play, feel free to chime in with questions and comments. We can address those after we're done, but we're gonna walk through it live, and I have no idea what Ben's going to be saying, but this is how it works in the real world when we're talking to prospects. We don't know what's happening. So without further ado, let's just bring Ben on. How are you, Ben?
Hi, good morning, Bill. Things are going well. How's your week going?
Cool. It's great. It's great. I'm looking forward to this.
That's nice to meet you.
Well, we're not started. We haven't started yet. So cool. So you're going to be playing the prospect, and now before you get on the phone with a prospect, traditionally, especially if you have your lead generation dialed in, you're going to want that prospect to go through some qualification steps before they can book a call, ideally. Okay, so at a minimum, they're going to tell you, about their industry, revenue, maybe number of employees, so you can gauge the size of the operation, those types of things. So we have worked out that Ben is coming in as a referral. So he's got a friend who is a current client who referred him to me. So that's how he came in. So he did not go through like a traditional funnel process. So that's okay. He owns a barbershop, and he's doing about $300K in revenue. So those are kind of the pieces of information that I would know prior to going into the call. Now, as always, on your consultations, you really want to have an outline. Okay, a basic outline. Every consultation is different, so scripts are pretty much useless, but you can have you really want a guideline that will help you guide the call, an outline that helps you guide the call. And you also need, it doesn't have to be pink, but you do need a notepad. You've got to be taking notes. If you're not taking notes on consultation calls, you're not doing as well as you could be, okay? Because we're going to be asking lots of questions, and the prospect will be giving us valuable information with their answers that we will then use to determine what the problem is, what the best solution is, and how we can get them to that point. So we're going to want to show that we're listening. We're going to want to restate some of the things that they're saying. So a great way to do that is to write it down as opposed to trust your memory. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. Ben booked a call on my calendar, so I'm just going to go ahead and give him a call, and we'll get started. All right. So go ahead and pick up the phone, Ben.
Good morning, Bill.
Hey, Ben. How you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Very cool. Very cool. So, Jose, my client.
I do know Jose, and he has spoken very highly of you, Bill. In fact, we went to school together, and he's got another business in town. And man, his business is literally booming. And I'm hoping that maybe you can help me out a little bit too.
What kinds of terrible things did Jose say to you about me?
Terrible. Well, nothing terrible. Obviously, I think for him, working with somebody else has taken, a little bit of time, but it feels as though his family is doing better, his marriage is doing better, and just business in general has it just seems to have just kind of lifted some of the weight because he's been really struggling with doing the booking, the bookkeeping part of his business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, he obviously you're pretty close if he's kind of told you about how some of those things have impacted his personal life.
Yeah, we've been friends for like I said, since high school.
Cool. Well, very cool. So tell me a bit about your business and what specifically you're looking for some help with.
All right. Well, Bill, I own a barber shop. I've been doing this for a few years now, and business has been good. I feel like people who are loyal to the business are there, through the ups and the downs. Obviously, the last few years, we've needed to increase our prices, and I'll share a little bit later just some of the struggles that are there as a result of that. But we currently rent a building that has room for it has additional seats, but currently I don't have people who are filling those renting those chairs, so that we can bring in even more revenue. So I honestly I feel like we've been kind of at a standstill, but for some of the goals that I have, I really need to begin having somebody like you who's able to be inside of the business and to help me with some of those goals. So I feel like right now my bookkeeping is eating into my family time, and my margins feel like they're less and less. I'm wondering if maybe there's a way that I can pay less tax, if there's a way that I can actually increase my profit in ways that I'm not aware of. And as the expert, I'm hoping that you can help me with some of those things.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like business is good, but you'd like it to be great.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to bookkeeping, what does that look like for you? Is that something you're doing? Do you have somebody helping you out with that? What does that look like?
You know what? I'm probably what you would call a kind of a micromanager, and so I do like to have my hand in all things. And though I love cutting hair and cutting beards and doing all those kinds of things, at the end of the day, I still feel like giving that over to somebody else feels like a stretch. And so, I always make excuses like, oh, you know what? It's not going to take that long, or it really isn't, that much of a hindrance. I can do it after my kids go to bed. But I feel like it's on my mind more than it should be. And, from Jose, it sounds like he's really been able to kind of lift that burden. And just wondering what it would take to help me with something like that.
So you're doing your bookkeeping currently.
I am, yes.
Approximately how many hours per week are you spending on your books?
2 hours?
2 hours a week?
Correct.
8 hours per month? Would that be fair to say?
Very fair. Yeah, between 8 and 10 hours, I would say.
Now, have you filed your taxes for 2021 yet?
I have not. I tend to wait until the last minute for that. But it feels like every year it tends to get done, and from my perspective, it's done correctly.
Okay. But 2020 has been filed.
2020 has been filed, correct.
And what does your CPA? What's his reaction when he sees your books? Like, is he generally happy with the condition of the books?
I feel like in general he's happy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. Obviously, we want to ensure that if the books aren't solid, if we don't have that solid foundation, the tax return keys off those numbers. So it's always a concern. It's always a primary concern to ensure that we're paying as little in tax as possible, and we're only going to do that if we have, accurate numbers. So it sounds like you've been doing a decent job. Would that be fair to say?
I hope so,
Well,
but you never know, right? You never
you never
really
know.
know if you're leaving, some money on the table, which is, some of my concern in, in investigating and reaching out.
Got it. Perfect. You also mentioned that your margins aren't where you'd like them to be. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, because the cost of things is, getting more and more, like our rent, goes up and our supplies go up, and to constantly, raise the rate on my, my loyal customers almost feels unfair. And so even just thinking about, um, what other barbers in my city are doing, I feel like they're able to, offer the same services for less. And so though my clientele doesn't feel like it's declining, I feel like, there are people who could be potential customers who are actually going somewhere else. And so with the margins being less and less, it makes it harder for us to even consider the option of growing, which is what I would like to do, in terms of revenue, and, opening another location is what my dream would be.
Are you another location is a big goal for you?
That is a big goal for me. I do have, big goals for my business. I feel like, our skills are in high demand, and the people that we currently serve, are people who potentially could, refer others, and there would be, faithful clients coming through the doors.
Ideally, when would you like to open that other location? Well, like, what's your time frame look like on that?
Well, I've been dreaming about it for a long time. I would say if in the next year, 6 months to a year, I could do that. That would be a big win for me.
Perfect. Let's talk about your margins a little bit. So, where are they now?
Well, currently, a general cut is $30, and I feel like, I'm able to make about $5 profit on each person that comes in the door. So ideally, if I could double that, or even get to $7 or $8, I feel like, moving that needle from, where I'm at right now of 300K to, ideally 500K with a new location is, kind of just the numbers in my head that seems to make sense for me right now.
You feel like that's doable based on what you know about the industry?
I do, totally. Yeah, people are, coming out of hiding, and so it's, I
From
feel like it's
COVID?
sure.
They just look like, like wild animals with the
You know
hair
what?
overgrown.
I feel like a lot of people are starting to either cut their own hair. I have a lot of friends actually who are getting their wives to cut their hair, and their kids are getting their hair cut by their wives. In fact, we have some neighbors, who are, looking for other adults in the neighborhood because, getting a haircut's an expensive thing, and it's not like when we were kids and it was, under $10. And so, though it is in a sense a luxury item, professionals are willing to spend that money.
Sure, sure. So you adding $200,000 in revenue in the next year is doable for you
Yes, I
based
feel
on
like
what you know. What
yes.
what what's preventing you from getting there aside from being locked in and spending more time on your books than what you'd like to be spending?
Sure, good question. I feel like my primary obstacle right now would simply be, um, just, you know having enough capital on hand to get this thing going, where, we have a little bit of room every month, but in terms of what it would cost to, get something up and going, a building, possibly needing to renovate the inside, and just kind of the vibe that we give when people come in. Some of those, those atmosphere things do take some money, lighting, supplies, equipment, that kind of thing. So, probably for, 50 to 70, $1,000, we can kind of get the place to where it actually looks like our brand. Does that make sense?
Sure. Sure does. And the time you're spending on your books, if you're not spending time on your books, where are you spending that time?
Well,
Where would you like to be spending that time? Where are you most effective in your business?
Well, I would like I said, I try not to use time that I could be making money in the chair to do my books, and so honestly, it ends up being my family time, which is irreplaceable. I have young kids, and if I could free that time up, that would probably be even more valuable to me than say freeing up 2 hours of time during my workday.
And so you charge about $30 for a cut. How many cuts can you do in an hour?
I do about 2 cuts in an hour.
Two. So $60 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just doing some simple math here. $60 an hour, essentially. And you're spending about 8 hours a month on your books,
Mm-hmm.
from what it sounds like. If I'm doing my math correctly. $480. $480 a month, and you're telling me it essentially is revenue you could be generating if you weren't doing your books, but you wouldn't be generating that revenue. You'd be spending it with your children, with your family.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean that sounds like a tiny number, $480 for what I would get back with my kids.
Sure.
So at this point, sure, that is the math, but I feel like it's far more valuable than that to me.
As a father of two young ones myself, I would say that 8 extra hours with my kids is worth quite a bit more than $480 as well. So I think we're both on the same page there. That number would be quite large for me into the priceless category. But for practical purposes, it's certainly more than $500 a month for sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me like you're looking to get the bookkeeping done, but you're also looking for someone who can put a plan in place to help you expand, grow cash reserves that will allow you to expand your practice. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what's your time frame for getting this done in terms of, I know you want to add another location in 6 months to a year. If I'm able to put together a plan for you where we handle your bookkeeping, give you that time with your family, but in doing so, putting together a plan to plan for expansion, to grow cash reserves so that you can open another location while fixing your margin issue. Is that something you're looking to get started on right away?
Absolutely, it is. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Hmm.
So, what questions do you have for me?
What would the cost be? I think that's the first thing. Just in thinking about, I want to grow the cash reserve, and I know that's going to take some time. How much of that cash is going to be tied up in a fee? I guess one of my questions is, your pricing structure, is that an hourly thing that you do? How do you set that up? That would be my first question.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. When it comes to kind of a fee and what it looks like to to accomplish some of these things for you, obviously we're handling your bookkeeping, but we're also creating that plan that's going to allow you to expand and grow $200,000 in revenue over the next 12 months, which you've mentioned is totally possible with the right plan and people in place. When it comes to a fee for that, we're looking at something that is going to be a kind of a flat fee, a flat monthly fee. When it comes to hourly fees, to be quite honest with you, there's just really no incentive to be efficient. And, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I leverage technology, and I'm really able to very accurately determine the quantity and complexity of the work to be done.
Sure.
And so we give you a number that you can plan on month in and month out, as opposed to tracking hourly. So what that will allow us to do is it will allow us the freedom to be proactive for you. Okay, so without you having to worry about fluctuating bills. We want to do as much as we can do to help you hit that goal. Okay, we're not just looking to get work done as quickly as possible. So that's how that works. Obviously, there are some questions that I'm going to have for you to determine a more specific number in terms of what that fee would look like. I'd also need to look at your books. It sounds like they're probably in pretty good shape if your CPA hasn't been having huge issues with those. But based on what we've discussed, you've got one location. Sounds like you've got a checking account. You've got a couple of credit cards. Would that be accurate?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And how many people are on your payroll?
We currently have five guys.
5 employees. How do you run payroll, by the way? Do you run that out of QuickBooks?
We are doing that in QuickBooks right now.
Okay. Perfect. Just based on just kind of that preliminary information, a fee to kind of partner together on the level that we're talking about is going to look in the $1,000 to $1,500 per month range.
Wow. Okay. I did come to this call kind of with some kind of background as to what I can afford. I'm thinking probably like $800 feels like what I'm able to do right now. Is that something that you're able to kind of get me in the door until we see some of these things begin to start rolling? That would be probably one of my my primary concerns.
Yeah, I can appreciate that as a small business owner myself. I can certainly appreciate that. On our end, we would be dedicating, some significant resources towards generating that additional revenue for you. I'm guessing if you're at $300,000 in revenue currently, and you're looking to grow, you're looking to almost double. So you're looking to add $200,000 in revenue in the next year. That would be a pretty big result for your business, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Is that fair to say? So, generating a significant result like that for your business is going to take some effort. It's going to take it's going to take a concerted effort to make that happen. So, 800 is very close to 1,000, and I'd like to say that that's a possibility after I look at your books. It certainly is a possibility, but it's not likely. It's not likely. Just considering the amount of effort that's going to go into generating that result for you. Mm-hmm. So if something, if you've got an extra couple $100 a month lying around, that might be something you want to consider. And if that's something that that's a little outside of what you're able to do right now, That's fair. That's okay as well. I mean, that's fine. And I might be able to turn you on to a couple of other people that might be able to help you out with something that's closer to your budget. I can't necessarily guarantee they're going to be able to kind of partner with you on that level to generate that result, because the fee is tied to the effort it takes to help you grow your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And even just after hearing that, it just makes me, kind of reconsider, what I was previously thinking of, and in thinking of, what this would literally do for my business. It feels like maybe I am a numbers guy and I'm kind of a tightwad, but I really don't want to cut any corners when it comes to my business, because it really is, my family and kind of my future on the line. And even just after the way you explained it, it feels like it may not be wise of me to save a few $100 for, what could potentially happen in the future. So another question I have is how would we, how would we measure something like that? Is that a guarantee that you would do for me, or just speak to that part of kind of that insecurity in that question.
Sure. Yeah. As a fellow business person, I think you can appreciate the fact that there are no guarantees in business. There are a lot of moving parts here. But if you feel like number one, that this is doable, which you've mentioned that you do feel like that's doable, adding that additional revenue. And if you feel like partnering with somebody who's done it for someone you know and trust, and who's done it with other people, if you feel like that gives you your best chance to get there, then that might make sense for you. While there are no guarantees, does it give you your best shot at getting there? That's something I would encourage you to think about. And in terms of kind of the fee and that guarantee, let me suggest something. Let me take a look at your books. Let me get a little bit more specific on that fee. Again, it could be $1,500. We don't know. But let's get started. Let's put together a plan. Okay, and I'm talking about a plan with specific benchmarks, okay, for the next 12 months. And let's get started. After month 1, after month 2, after month 3, let's ensure that we're tracking towards that plan. Does that sound fair?
That does sound fair. Yeah, and I think because of what Jose is paying, which is, less, maybe that's where I thought that I was going to, come in at a lower number. But no, I really do appreciate, it sounds like you're very intentional in the way that you're going to help me.
Great. So other questions that you have for me?
I don't have any other questions. No, those are my primary thoughts. You've come back, with a number for me. What are the kind of the first steps that I would need to take in working with you?
So next step is sharing your QuickBooks file. So you can add me as an accountant user on your QuickBooks file. I'll take a look. I'll really narrow down that fee for you. And I would send you an engagement letter that summarizes everything we've talked about today. What your responsibilities are. Okay, because I'll need some information from you. What my responsibilities are. Okay, because you're making an investment in me, and now it's time for me to deliver on that. So exactly what those expectations look like, what that plan is going to look like. You'll send that over, and we'll get started. We'll set up a call for later this week to review everything, and we'll get started.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Cool. Sounds good. So then we would set the call, and we would say goodbye. Pleasure speaking with you. And that's the end of the role play. You seem to know a lot about cutting hair.
Well, it is something that I guess I needed a haircut when I was a kid, and I saw how much my parents spent on cutting my hair, and so Yeah, you know what? I feel like it's been um, something that I've yeah just taken an interest in. Whether it's athletes or celebrities, and so anyway, it is
Well,
passion.
my mom is a cosmetologist, so she cut my hair, and now guess who cuts it?
Well, I'm
I do.
one of two people on my mind, but you get to do
Yeah,
it. All
I
the
get to do it.
when it's all the same uh, length. It's yes, makes it easier.
So let's talk about that call. What are some areas as an observer? I know you're a participant, but you have observed how I handled things. What are some things that you felt were handled well, and what were some things as a bookkeeper that you feel like, that seemed a little sticky, or it seemed like it could use some work?
Good question. Well, I think I'm always when I'm doing those, it is trying to uh, listen to the person while also thinking about how to direct the conversation. I feel is one of the biggest challenges, as a bookkeeper, and so. But I feel like you listened to me, and it felt very like personable. Just some of the ways that you made me feel like I kind of knew you, whether it was your family, um, or just how you could relate to my situation as a fellow business owner. Um, in terms of what I would do differently.
In
Uh,
other words, feedback for me.
yeah. You know what? I don't. I think because you do such a good job at just being comfortable on the call. That's something that the rest of us are trying to get acquainted with, and so whether we're trying to mimic you or whether we're trying to kind of learn some of the ways that you do what you do. Ultimately, we want these clients to feel as though we're on their side, and so I feel like that's what you were doing. And so not only are you inquisitive, but you're also wise in the way that you help to guide the conversation. So um, maybe if you talk for another couple minutes, I'll think of something that I would have done differently.
The one of the words you just used that I'd like to highlight is inquisitive. On these calls, I think the last one we did with, well, his name was Ben too, but kind of we dove more into, a lot deeper into some of the more significant issues with his business, and one of the comments was, "Well, when are you going to talk about bookkeeping?" And you'll notice on this call, we spend very little time talking about, well, how many transactions do you have and how many credit cards do you have? I wanted to ask a couple of questions, so I kind of had an idea. But, you don't, on these calls, you really don't want to fall into the trap of asking a bunch of questions about their books. How many credit cards, how many transactions. We can ask questions about, how do you normally get paid with a barber shop. I felt comfortable. I didn't really need to ask that, and how you pay bills and things like that. But you're going to, by being inquisitive and asking questions that relate to the problems that the business owner is facing and the goals that they have, you are going to make the prospect feel like you care. I mean, it's a subconscious thing that happens. I mean, some people don't like to go to the doctor, but I know a lot of people love to go to the doctor, and I love to go to the doctor because it's like somebody's taking the time to ask me questions and get to know me, and is really cares about what's wrong with me and feeling me over here, and I'm like that feels good to me. That feeling of being cared for and being taken care of. And It's because they're asking questions and they're really getting to know what's wrong with you. And if you're able to spend, you should be spending the majority of your time doing that, asking questions to really determine what the real problems are that the business owner is having, and then trying to attach some numbers to those to quantify those. You were doing your own bookkeeping. It was costing you about $500 a month if you were cutting hair instead of doing your books. But you gave me a huge opening that I didn't really capitalize on towards the end when we talked about your fee. But you said, time with my kids is worth way more than $500 a month. It's like priceless. It's like, yeah, okay, well, fine. Then find the extra $200. If I wanted to be a pushy salesman, I would have been like, okay, you're coming in at 800. I'm at 1,000. I thought you said your kids were worth more than $500. Obviously, those aren't things we're going to say, but those are things that if we ask the right questions, we can help the prospect come to that conclusion. Well, I just got done saying, $200,000 would be a big result for my business, but now I'm squabbling over $200 a month. I just said that time with my kids is priceless. It's worth thousands of dollars a month, but now I'm squabbling over $200. Like those are the areas where I feel like when it came to that price differential, you were at 800 and I was at 1,000. I could have touched on those a little bit.
Sure.
But again, you got to be sensitive. You got to be asking the right questions there. But I did tie it back to the $200,000 result that you wanted. If you're doing 300K, if a prospect's talking to you and you're doing 300K, and you've been doing it for a few years, like you said, and then all of a sudden in 1 year you want to almost double your revenue, that's probably going to take some time and effort. And that's what I wanted to convey to you, is that that's going to take effort. If you want a smaller result, yeah, you could probably save a little bit of money because, it's going to be easier to help you grow your revenue by $50,000 than it is to grow it by $200,000. If you want somebody to get you that result, then, big results typically involve big efforts.
Sure. And in the case,
that makes sense?
Mind me asking, in the case that maybe I didn't have plans of, opening another location, like I simply wanted someone just to take those books off of my hands, and I was doing it during work time, and it was costing me $500 a month. How would you have come in on the monthly cost?
It probably would have been similar. It probably would have been similar. But it may have been a little bit less. But I would have focused more on the goal that you had to grow I would have asked you more about the goal you had to grow your business, because if you're at 300K, you might not want to expand to another location, but you probably want to increase profit by more, increase revenue to some degree. And then I could have spent some time asking you, okay, well, what's your plan? What does that look like for you in terms of growing that revenue? Are we talking about you just need to get more barbers to fill that rental space? Do we need to focus on marketing? Like, what are the key components that you feel need to be in place to help you reach that goal? And then I'm going to use the answers to that question to illustrate specific areas where I can be instrumental in helping you accomplish that.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on not waiting until somebody asks? Like if the person doesn't even think, they're always going to think about what the cost is going to be. What are your thoughts on just kind of giving a price up front without them asking? Is that something you typically wait for them to ask about?
No. there are a lot of different sales techniques out there, and one little technique that salespeople have is you never mention you wait for them to ask for the price first. And if you have your lead generation dialed in and people have gone through a process of being nurtured, they've seen your messaging, they clearly kind of understand the value that you're going to be creating, things like that. They don't want to be, they don't want to, and we don't need to sell to them in a way where we have to use tricks. Where we have to use tricks in terms of like things like waiting for them to, bring up price, or another trick that people like to use, which is like cringy as as can be, is saying the price and then being silent.
Mm-hmm.
That's another strategy. Say the price and then just not talk. Whoever talks first after that, even if it's like you have to wait 5 minutes, whoever talks first loses. It's just, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it if you do a very good job of asking those questions, being inquisitive, really caring about their business, and then quantifying those areas where you're able to help. If you're able to do that, then it comes to it typically results in the prospect being excited about buying this solution. So what does it look like? What's it going to cost me? If they don't ask for it, and it's time to talk about it on the call, I'll say, great. Shall we talk numbers? Would you like to talk numbers?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I handle that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, a lot of these things you'll realize that the more work you do up front in being inquisitive and quantifying the cost of their problems and the goals that they have, a lot of those other issues towards the end of the call start to minimize. Okay, in terms of like their objections to price and all of those types of things. So I would encourage everybody to spend a lot of time asking more questions and really getting specific and getting deep. It's going to make them feel like you are a partner. Subconsciously, they're just going to feel like they're being taken care of, and they're going to be much more apt to be more open with you in answering your questions. And the more they do that, the more of an emotional connection they're having that you can then capitalize on when it comes time to close the deal.
Sure. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
We got a Facebook user, and I think I know who this is. I don't know. I can't see directly here, but it's a question that's in line with somebody. I think I know. So without saying their name, because they haven't clicked on the link that allows me to see names and profile pictures for everybody. But anyway, they're asking, what if their growth expectation is unrealistic? Well, I'm going to first ask them if it is realistic. And if they feel like it's realistic and I feel like, well, maybe it's not so realistic, I'm going to say something like, okay, that's great. So you're doing $300,000 in revenue. Currently, you've been doing this. Let's say you've been doing this for 3 years. You're up to $300K in revenue, and you just told me that you want to hit $1 million in revenue in the next year. Okay, that's great. I'm probably going to do two things. First, I'm going to ask, okay, great. What are some of the things that you feel like need to be in place for you to hit that goal? Okay. At some point, their logic's going to start to fall apart a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to steer them into a conversation about, hey, $1 million in a year is great. Sounds like you, in the last 3 years, have grown to 300K. Would you say that adding another 300K in the next year would also be a big win for you, considering it's taken you 3 years to get to 300? So maybe scaling that expectation back just a little bit and getting them to say like, well, yeah, 1 million would be great. 1 billion would be great. But yeah, if I could double in the next year, sure, I'd like to do that. I may also even ask them, okay, after the first year, kind of where were you? Second year, third year? And then we can see some trends there. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to illustrate to them what a reasonable expectation would be. I mean, if they went from 0 to 300K in the first year, they might be able to get to $1 million in the next year. It really all depends on their business and what they're doing to accomplish that. But let me know if you have more specific questions about that. But those are the two things I would do. I would break it down. I would ask them kind of what pieces they feel like need to be in place to make that happen. Logic will start to fall apart at some point if it is just completely unrealistic. And then I'll scale back their expectations and say, yeah, 1 million would be great. But considering it took you this long to get to 300K, would doubling your revenue also be something you would get excited about? Because that puts you at 600. And then doubling it again next year, that puts you at over $1 million. Is that something that you could get excited about? So we're going to want to manage some expectations there. But unrealistic is something that you'll have to determine in conjunction with the prospect, whether or not that word means the same thing for both of you. So good question, though. And if anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and pop them into the comments on Facebook or the chat on YouTube. Hey, Joe, you're asking what are some of the things we would do to help the client grow their business? Well, their bookkeeping already gives us, there's just so much we can do when it comes to helping business owners grow. Okay, so let's start at kind of some of the more basic things and let's work our way up. With bookkeeping, if an owner's doing their own bookkeeping, they're typically doing it wrong and they're typically spending time doing it that really should be spent growing their business. So, Ben, you were doing your books instead of cutting hair. You could be making $500 extra a month if you were cutting hair instead of doing your books. So if I were to come in, maybe your account is really simple. Maybe your account is super simple. Maybe you'd fall in the $300 per month for just your basic bookkeeping range. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense for you. I have a lot of $300 per month clients because we can, run through their books in like a half hour a month. So you're realizing like $600 an hour there. That's pretty good. But $300 a month is what you'd be paying me, but you'd be making $500 a month cutting hair. So you're buying money at that point. That makes sense for you. So Joe, when it comes to just taking it off the business owner's plate, you can allow them to help grow their business or serve more customers beyond bookkeeping. Because bookkeeping is very valuable. Beyond that, you can start offering, higher level advisory type services where you're helping them interpret that information and creating plans for them to grow their business. Whether that's, forecasting the P&L, cash flow forecasting, budgeting, doing financial modeling, developing KPIs and tracking those KPIs and strategic planning. Some of those types of functions that where you're now essentially making yourself a partner and you're coming from a place of, okay, this is my business now. What do I do to help us grow? Okay, so you can go from just basic bookkeeping all the way through advisory and CFO type services. So that's those are things that you can do to help somebody get that big result. Again, if you're pricing your services based on the value you can create, the more value you can create, the more you can charge. Okay, so if I'm able to help Ben add $200,000 in revenue, I'm going to charge a significant percentage of that to help him get that, regardless of how much time it takes me. And that will really open things up for you in terms of charging premium fees. So, but it all starts on that consultation. If you aren't able to draw out those problems, their goals, how much it's costing them, what it looks like in numbers, then you are severely handicapped when it comes to generating a value-based fee. And so then you kind of fall back on counting transactions or estimating hourly or other insane things like trying to price your services as a percentage of revenue, which makes zero sense at all. So So Joe, let me know if you have further questions on that. Elite Bookkeeping said great nuggets of info. Cool. Ben, I will go ahead and release you. You've really helped out here. I appreciate the role play. We'll have to do another one again sometime.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
All right. So there you have it. We're going to do one of these every single month. Okay. One of these every month. We're going to do a live role play. And we're all going to, it's a learning process for everyone. Okay. And the better you get at these consultations, the more you can charge. Okay. So you might be closing a lot of consultations, but if you feel like you're not seeing the fees that you'd like to realize, how you handle consultations may be an area where you can improve your skills. And so we'll do those here, and then we'll have discussions about it. If you're watching the replay, feel free to comment or comment either on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll monitor those and I'll be answering those, and we'll keep the conversation going. I genuinely want to help everybody get where they want to be, add 6 figures of bookkeeping and advisory revenue. If that's where you're going, we've got people in my mentorship program doing it all the time, getting these awards over here. There's a 100K award. There's a 75K award. But reach out and let me know if you have any questions. With that said, I will go ahead and wrap things up. Again, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the private Facebook group. We're always coming out with new information to help you grow your business. Leave me a comment or send me a message if you want to get in touch. And we go live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific here on Booming Bookkeeping Live. So with that said, have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.